At the heart of what we do is exploring limitless possibilities to enrich lives all over the world. Life is precious, and we are in the business of cherishing every precious heartbeat. Every day brings a new reason to better our lives. Something to learn, something to laugh and enjoy, something to dream. For as long as there's a dream, there's hope, and as long as there's hope, there's joy in living. Reasons for us to keep every heart happy and healthy. Helping us in our endeavor are the many interventional cardiovascular solutions that we create. At our state-of-the-art facilities, we make our stents and catheters, wires and needles, German excellence and Indian innovation backed by credible research. With the unmatched advantage of being the only company with clinical trials data spanning over 10 years for efficacy and safety. And a one-of-its-kind partnership with the German Heart Center, renowned for its pioneering advancements in cardiovascular technologies. It's not surprising we have over 5,000 satisfied clients and 1 million smiling patients in over 50 countries around the world. We trust good things happen when you follow your heart, because there's an ocean of opportunities to discover. And our journey has just begun. Translumina, exploring limitless possibilities of life.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today. To all the viewers, thank you for taking out time on your Sunday morning to join us. Today, we have a couple of very interesting sessions. To start off with, we have the first session, Unprotected Left Main PCI. We have a lot of eminent doctors on the panel, Dr. Suresh Vijan, Dr. Gurunath Barale, Dr. V.K. Shah, who will be moderating the session, Dr. Prasad Shah. Dr. V.K. Shah, who's a senior interventional cardiologist attached with S.R. Mehta and Cardiac Institute and H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital. He has more than 30 years of experience and around 75 plus publications in national and international journals. He's always had a special interest in STEMI care. He'll be the moderator for the session. I would want to invite Dr. Shah, and I would want to hand over the session to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shantanu. So let me share the screen first. Okay. And then just a minute, it is loading, that PowerPoint. Can you see can you see it?
Not yet, sir.
Now?
No, sir. You will have to open the presentation on your desktop and then come back to share the screen.
I have opened it right now, and then what do I do now,
You can come back to the Zoom screen, sir, and then click on share screen, which will be at the bottom. It will be a green button.
1 minute, how do I come back on your Zoom screen now? Okay, this one
icon at the bottom. You have
this one, yeah. Now I share screen.
Yes, sir.
And then, okay.
No, if you open your presentation first on your laptop.
Okay. Yeah, it is open now.
Yes,
can you see now?
Yes, sir, we can
see that.
Okay, so I'll go on the slideshow also.
Sure.
Okay, So today, let's begin. We are going to talk about left main, which is one of the most important, hottest topic for every interventional cardiologist all over the globe, and why it is important, Can I? Yeah, okay. So let me give you a brief background with few slide presentation before we move on to the actual show. So patients with left main coronary disease have high morbidity and mortality just because of large amount of myocardium which is at risk. And most patients with left main coronary artery disease historically were treated by coronary artery bypass surgery till almost 2000. After that, the subset analysis of syntax and later on the pre-combat and compare trial and many other trials later on with the second generation stent have suggested that angioplasty with new generation of stent can be an alternative for patients with low or moderate risk. However, increased operator experiences, physiological assessment and imaging techniques have further improved the outcomes of angioplasty today. What is different in left main? Left main is a separate specialty, or a separate animal, you can say, different shapes, sizes, orientation, overlap of the vessels, bifurcation angles, and various other fields, and that makes the left main a unique entity for our treatment. Our left main can be divided into three separate parts. One is the ostial left main, which is seen in about 15 to 20% of all the patients. Shaft of the left main, which can be involved in about 10 to 15%, and almost 75% of the cases are usually left main bifurcation diseases. Ostial and mid-shaft regions have a lower rate of restenosis, and the target vessel revascular is significantly low in non-bifurcation than in bifurcation lesions of left main, which was shown by our Korean colleagues. Why left main is a unique entity? Because of a large amount of myocardium at geopody, a very large side branch diameter. It's an unusual side which is branch, which is very important as much as the main branch. Wide angle of bifurcation, usually more than 70 degrees. And most of the left main bifurcation can be treated with provisional stenting with one stent. However, two stents may be required in almost 50% of the cases. Therefore, such a unique entity with so much of variations, today's objective of this session would be to get updated on the clinical outcomes in patients with left main treated with PCI or bypass surgery, and to understand the different clinical criteria, the anatomical variations like angles, calcification, bifurcation lesions, which play a major role in decision making between PCI and coronary artery bypass surgery, and how to apply these various criteria that we have learned from so many trials and experiences. And therefore, to carry through this objective, we have two eminent cardiologists who are going to be our experts, and I'll introduce them. Should I stop the sharing of screen now?
Yeah, you can stop the scanning.
Yeah. So we have two experts for that. One is Dr. Suresh Vijan, who is a senior interventional cardiologist at Lilavati Hospital, and he's also a director of Indian Bifurcation Club. And then we have Dr. Gurunath Parale, with whom I had a chat recently. He is a senior interventional cardiologist at Sholapur with almost 30 years of experience, and he has wide interest in research work and published many books and articles. So this will be our two experts to guide through all this. And then we have four panelists. I can see Dr. Anil Podar coming in now. He is the chairperson and head of the department of his Pari Soha Hospital in Mumbai. Then I have Dr. Prashad Shah, who is a cardiologist senior at Pune Hospital in Pune. Then Dr. Nitin Tiwari, who is a HOD of cardiology at the Wockhardt Hospital in Nagpur. And then I have not seen Akshay Bafna yet, on the screen, but he is also going to join us. He was a senior cardiologist from Kolhapur. And then we have 5 different speakers, and we'll begin the first case. Is it with Dr. Suresh Vijan who will start the game? Okay, so welcome Suresh. Can you present your case? And then, okay, before I do that, each speaker will have 12 minutes for presentation, and then will be 3 minutes for discussion. So 15 minutes in total. If the speaker can sum it up early, then we will have more time to discuss, and that will be much more important than just showing too many things, you know. So I urge all the speakers, the 5 different speakers, to finish off their presentation by 10 minutes so that we have sufficient time and take the expert views about how that each case should be can be attempted. Thank you and welcome, Vijan.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Okay. You've just introduced the topic quite succinctly, Vinod, and I'm just going to rapidly run through this particular slide. Main reason why is left main different, size and length of the left main. This direct origin from the ostia, which predisposes you to a guide catheter trauma or to a stent that you may implant in the ostium. Very frequent ostial involvement as alluded earlier. In addition, a huge discrepancy in the size of the main branch and the daughter branches, which usually is LAD and circumflex. And in addition, about 10% of these bifurcations are actually trifurcations. The size and disease extent in the side branches dictate whether the side branch needs protection, not protection, stenting, not protection. The angle, as already alluded, is very variable, and therefore your strategies may vary from case to case. Calcification is a very big issue in left mains. It can be circumferential and very difficult. Given the size of the left main, it does become a problem in time to get the best result there. What is the value of imaging each and every case is always difficult and open, and whether we should be using physiological assessment of indeterminate lesion is something that's being discussed. So my topic today is to talk about a case. I must apologize, it's not a true unprotected left main, but it does make some points about sizing, which I think is very crucial, because I see so many presentations where you suddenly find that the stent is dangling in the left main. So sizing is important, and clearly imaging helps, but how to do it without imaging. So this is a 60-year-old male, diabetic, a CABG done in 2011 with a Lima to LAD and Rima to RCA. He came back to us recently with unstable angina. Angiography showed that the grafts were patent, but the circumflex disease, and I'll show you that here. You can see that you have two things. You have moderate degree of left main stenosis in this way. You have a circumflex there, a codominant circumflex, lesion in the posterior circumflex, and lesion also at the ostium of the OM. So you have this complex disease here. Lima graft is worsening, so we are not worried about LAD, but we are concentrating on this particular territory. That's another view. You can see that now, a nipple leg. And clearly what is obvious on the angiogram is there is disease which comes from the left main through the circumflex into either of these two. This is all a disease segment. Now, how do you go about judging the size? How do you go about doing this particular case? Clearly, you look at the OM and the posterior circ are big size arteries. Now, if you apply Finnett's law here, your proximal circumflex should at least be 4+. So that's the first thing you got to realize. Second thing, if your circumflex is 4+, then your left main should at least be 6, from between 5 and 6, given that the LAD is not something you can see very well, except a small stump. But clearly, this is the sizing that you need to keep in mind when you actually start doing the procedure, because that's going to ultimately decide how good a procedure you do and what the long-term results are going to be. So what we decided was we would take these pictures, and you can see that left main disease now in this particular view, quite significant there right at the ostium. So we first passed the wire and did an IVUS, and this is IVUS into the OM. And you can see as you come back, the OM ostium is quite significantly diseased. You can see that here. The circumflex is also diseased, and there is disease extending all the way into the left main. Left main, you can see here, is at least 5.5. So clearly, imaging helped in just confirming what Finnett's law presented. But that is something that you must learn, that you may not necessarily have IVUS with you, but Finnett's law tells you what to expect. So here we wired the OM. Wiring the posterior circ was very difficult in terms of the angle. It took a while before we could get it down, but we got it down. And then we decided that this branch in the circumflex had to be protected. So we first dilated the posterior circumflex. I said we would stent the circumflex and crush that stent of the posterior circumflex, and then put one stent from OM all the way up to the ostium of the left main. So a long stent. Clearly sizing becoming important, but this sizing was slightly better than sizing through the posterior circumflex. So that's what we did. We dilated that. That's post balloon. Then we dilated the ostium of the circumflex just to get some ideas what. Leaving that balloon there, we put a 2.75/24 Ultimaster into the posterior circumflex, crushed it. Then I used the 2.5 balloon to dilate the coronaries and go all the way up into the left main. So this will not give a good lumen, but at least will take care of any spicules all around the place. You can see how difficult it is to dilate the left main here. The balloon differentially opens up here better than here. So just think fairly serious stenosis there. Now this is the post-balloon picture. 2 wires in, you dilate. Now you can reconfirm just looking at Finner's law what should be your circumflex, proximal circumflex, and I think that should be 4+ for me. So having done that, we then recrossed into the first case done with crossing the wire back into the struts of the stents, and here you were going to do a DK crush, so we did a proximal entry and did a crush with 2.5, 2.5. This is the first case. And then we took in a long 3.538 Ultimaster stent from the OM all the way to the ostium of the circumflex. I use a 3.5 here, knowing very well that circ is 3, but 3.5 I know I can inflate higher, get to much bigger size into the left main ostium. Pull the balloon back a little bit and then actually went up to very high pressures. So the 3.5 stent actually became 4 by the time we finished doing this. We then, this is post-stenting. You can still see the left main is much smaller than the circumflex, clearly suggesting that you need to do some work there. We recrossed the wires and did the second crush, which is not recorded here for purpose. Then we actually dilated. Now we took the stents wire out for the posterior circumflex. You can see that now, clearly obvious that the circumflex is bigger than the left main. We then took a 4mm balloon into the circumflex, short balloon into the circumflex, dilated the ostium of the circumflex, did a little bit of work in the bifurcation area, then went in where the one video goes, sorry. We use a 6mm balloon to do a pot in the proximal left main, giving a good opposition and including ostium. So flared that ostium up very well. So this is the final, this is the final result of the DK crush and also of the ostia. And here you can see the left main fully open, nice open arteries, circumflex very well. Unfortunately, we could not get the IVUS catheter back inside. It would get stuck somewhere here. So we repotted this area and came out and just took a final angiographic picture suggesting that. But at least angiographically, we've got very decent result on this particular case. This was just one picture earlier. Thank you. So that's the key message I am trying to make with this presentation is that you must know your sizes before you start going in, because that's going to give you a durable result. This patient is now nearly 3 years post, 6 to 8 months and a year more, and he's doing very well, asymptomatic, stress test is negative. So clearly we've done a successful procedure and we've got a decent result from this particular procedure. I'm open to questions.
Okay, so Suresh, very nice and lucid presentation of this left main post bypass artery, and final result was excellent. I'm only worried about the circumflex ostium because to me it looked as if it is not very well opened, you know. So may I now ask the other panelist and the expert Dr. Gurunath Parale to pitch in and give their opinion as to how they would have done this case otherwise. You are muted, sir. Dr. Gurunath, you are still muted, you know, please.
Okay. It's a very well done case, but I agree with you. There was some pinching we see at the origin of circumflex there. And if you could get IVUS down or some physiological assessment to know whether it is significant and whether something more needs to be done, then we would have been more sure whether it should be left alone or we have to tackle it.
But we did tackle that with a 4mm high pressure balloon.
No, the osseous circ.
Yeah. So
yes,
the balloon,
sir.
you can see the balloon sitting like that. But yes, point taken. Circ ostium is probably the biggest challenge for all of us even today. If there's one lesion that I am always worried about dealing with is an ostial circ. The angle is different, the shape is different. You have a circular stent you want to put in into a shape which could be fish-like. So clearly, ostial circ is probably still an unmet challenge. We still don't have enough ideas of how to best treat that.
So Suresh, I just wanted to know, when you had put the IVUS, what additional information about over and above the size of the artery you tried to get?
No, there was some discussion when we were doing this case that whether we needed to just do the bifurcation there and leave everything alone. And I was convinced that there is more extensive disease than what we think. So the IVUS was to make a point that the proximal circ also was diseased and had significant disease and that needed to be treated and could not have failure. So that was the reason why we actually did that. Of course, additional advantage was we got a good size for what was the size of the left main.
And you did not see any calcification in the left main, right?
No, we didn't see any calcification.
Yeah, that was unusual, in a post-bypass case.
Yeah, absolutely.
LED 100% occluded, you don't see any calcification in the left main.
Yeah.
And therefore, probably your stent expansion in the left main at least was very good.
Yeah, it expanded very well. I mean, I was
very
had there been calcification, then of course that would have been indication to use some other device to try and take care of the calcium for us.
So I just want everyone to know, suppose Vijan, you don't have the IVUS, which we may have, but we may not be able to use it for a variety of reasons. One common thing that I feel is the operator's inexperience first. That's one of the hindering factor, and then of course the other factors like finances and all come into play. So suppose you don't have IVUS, then what you would have done and how you would have assisted?
I was just the additional cheese on the cake, right? If you want to, but clearly my decision making was on the angiogram, looking at the size on the angiogram. You can do that. I think unfortunately what's happening is that skill is being lost. We are not teaching our juniors how to size your arteries based on the guide catheter position and what. Clearly, if you can do that, then all you need is Finnett's law to tell you what is happening. And Finnett's law is a main vessel is 2/3 the size of the two daughter vessels or three daughter
vessels. But in the absence of LED, which was 100% occluded, how did you apply the Finnett's law? That means you assumed.
Yeah, see, what I'm saying is if your circumflex is 4, the LED has to be 3.54, can't be smaller than that. I mean, that's common sense. The proximal LED is one of the largest vessels in our body, irrespective of the size of the patient. So clearly, if that is the case, then I said, well, if that's 4 and this is 4, that's 8. My left main should be at least 6. And that's what I was shown. So clearly, yes, you need to make some assumptions, but clearly, you all know proximal LED is huge for most of us.
But
whatever we say about
I have one curiosity, suppose even if you have undersized the left main, in the absence of LED, which is 100% occluded, if the apposition of the stent is okay with the plaque, would it create still a problem even if you are not expanded very well? But if suppose the apposition is good,
Well, see, one is apposition of the stent. So the stent is properly opposed to the vessel wall and the plaque. Question is, what is the ultimate area that you're dealing with? Clearly, if you're dealing with a much larger area,
now the left main is in continuation with the circumflex in the absence of LED. So if you have the same circumflex area, would it matter, or you think the left main should be bigger?
I think you should try and give the best result for the size of the artery which is there. And if the artery is 6, actually we should go up to 6. The biggest problem I see in most cath lab is the availability of the 6 mm stent.
Right.
6 mm balloon. Short 6 mm balloons are not that commonly available, and we need to work with companies to try and make sure that these are on our shelves all the time, because that left main is where the size matters. Otherwise, in most cases you can deal with without too many hassles.
So in the absence of 6 mm NC balloon, what other choice you have, how to make it 6, what would you do?
Use a 5 compliant balloon. That's something that you should use. In fact, there is now an increasing evidence to suggest, in view of the cost issues, that use a compliant balloon for the final part. So you can go up higher to a bigger size if you feel that is the case. And that's something which you were doing, certainly. Yes.
You can take 3.5 balloon and do it, probably.
No, but the only problem there is then your stent is oval. It's not circular. The ultimate aim of the procedure is you want to make it circular. If you do 2, you might have something like that, which may not necessarily be.
Any other suggestions from our panelists? Anil?
Yeah, what you felt, it's a very well done case. The only thing is,
you're on mute. Anil, you're on mute.
No, net is not well properly.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. But only thing is that I was showed it to be 5.5 and you dilated with 4.5. So whether means the opposition is proper or not, you could not cross the circ, but left main you could have visualized, or
actually we couldn't see anything at that stage, because and I was more concerned that my IVUS catheter is going to damage the stent which it was hitting.
True. That is what I
once I pulled the wire, once I pulled the IVUS catheter out, I went with the balloon, tacked the whole area up and came back. Because that something can happen and you will not even notice that.
Absolutely, that is one of the always a concern doing IVUS post.
Pushing it.
Dr. Tiwari here. I would like to agree with Dr. Vijan that he wisely did not do the IVUS, because once you have dilated with a 6 mm balloon, we know that it has to be well opposed. One.
Four,
And,
four.
No, you said
No,
6. No?
6.
6
You
What,
said
millimeter.
what was
6.
6?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
was
6
the
by 8.
balloon, Anil?
6
Okay.
was quite good, and other thing was that there was a lot of bend in the circumflex, and there were the ostial left main was also covered. So and EBU catheter was there. So all the factors were there for a longitudinal stent deformation.
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
And although it has no major implication as per the trials, but still you are worried about the stent thrombosis concerning the left main or maybe the stenosis. So I think it's a wonderfully done result.
That's why you see that the last shoot.
Yes, it was wiser not to do the IVUS, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
And
The
that
last shoot is the
IVUS
stent.
catheter is also very stiff, and
Very
to
bulky,
negotiate
3.2
through that circumflex would have been
3.2
very, very
French.
difficult,
Very
probably.
difficult to negotiate. Yeah.
Another
There is
trick
always
that
a
I tend to
concern.
do, what I tend to do sometimes, and what you'll see in this particular last shoot, that my guided catheter is sitting just off
Outside.
the center
Outside,
of the.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not jumped into the left main. That's something I always try and avoid, because
Yes,
that is the
yes.
classical reason why you longitudinally deform the stent.
And so here, can you tell us the company if you don't mind?
Pardon?
Which balloon? 6 millimeter balloon from which company? It was from
It was
Terimo?
it was not Teramo. It was Accuforce. Accuforce. I don't know which company.
Accuforce is Terimo only. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they
Okay.
had. I mean, we kind of absolutely rigidly, me and Dr. Matthew insist that short, big balloons should be on our
Yeah,
shelf,
maybe,
and we
yes.
keep on fighting for it.
We have till 5.
You have to have that to do a good case. Otherwise, it's very difficult.
Very
5
difficult.
we have. Yeah. Good. Well done. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So well done, Suresh. And can we now move to the second presenter? Who is the second presenter now?
So we have Dr. Khandekar who will be
Dr.
presenting.
Khandekar, will you like to present your case now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, okay. Welcome to the show, and
Well.
please start your presentation. Limit your presentation to
bola
10
ki,
minutes so that we can have discussion a little longer.
Huh?
I hope the slides are visible.
Yes, very
Yes,
well.
yes.
Very well.
Unlike Dr. Vijan sir, my case is
But community
left main stenosis, and it was a primary PCI. The patient is a known systemic hypertensive,
थोडंसं per case थोडंसं वाढवलं पाहिजे मग पैसे कमी मिळतील तर.
he had a CKD stage 2, and he has had an PCI done in November 2007. 3.5 into 16 synergy was put in proximal LED. This admission he presented with vomiting
तर ठीक आहे पण
since evening,
मग ते
and
medical
he was
सांगितलं का त्याला?
casualty early morning of 21st, when he also had some.
थोडंसं वाढवलं पाहिजे रेट्स, नाही तर मग पैसे कमी मिळतील त्यात.
Yeah, can you mute the other people, please?
This was the ECG. This was the classical left main MI ECG. Global ST depressions with ST elevations in AVR and V1, and the echo, which was essentially normal in November, had his EF dropped down to 30%. So this was the first shoot. Is it visible? As you can see, the proximal LED stent is patent, and there was a tight stenosis in the ostial and body of the left main. So we took 2 cyan blue wires, LED and left circumflex were wired. As you can see in this, the LED ostium and the LED stent are okay, but there is a significant stenosis in the ostium of circumflex as well. So we took Synergy 3 into 24, starting from ostium of left main into circumflex. And dilated. This was a fairly good result, and we thought that we had covered the left main ostium adequately. So we took 3.58 first and then 4 into 8 balloons and dilated, post-dilated it robustly. When the shoots were taken again, we thought we had covered the left main properly, the left main ostium. But when the shoots were taken, again there was some stenosis seen in the left main. We did not know whether it was a recoil or whether we truly had missed the ostium of the left main. So we did not think much and we put in another Synergy 4 into 12 at that time, covering the ostium and coming into the aorta properly. And yeah, as you can see, there was some stenosis and it was covered properly, but much of the stent was into the aorta. And then something odd happened. The L6 wire was pulled off inadvertently. We had to change the guide catheter. And as a significant amount of stent was into the aorta, we could not engage the ostium of the left main properly. But we took the shoots nevertheless. And fortunately, the vessels were flowing. There was not much of a thrombosis or deformity of the stent. There is some haziness in the left main, but when the further shoots were taken, it was seen that it was not a thrombus. This was the best we could come close to the ostium. This was a view. RCA was okay, mild irregularities here and there, but nothing much there. Post PCI, this was the ECG. The ECG had settled down nicely, and at discharge, almost everything had settled down nicely with some T inversions in the anterior leads. It has been 2 years now. He has been following up. He is well. The ejection fraction has risen to around 55% now. He is totally asymptomatic. One thing I would like to say, as Sir had said, that it is very important to post left main. But when I had put that 4 into 12 stent into the ostium left main, and after the guide had come, I was not able to pass on the wire properly, neither the balloon could pass. So I could not post dilate the left main at all. So this is what I want to say, that could be a problem later on, but so far now 2 years have passed since patient is asymptomatic. I have not post dilated the left main stent, the 4/12, and still the patient is going well. So probably if we deploy the proper size of the stent even in the left main without post dilating, probably the patient will do well if the stents are apposed well to the left main. That is my take. Hopefully, even if we are not able to post dilate that stent, or even if we don't have an IVUS or something like that to see what is the exact size of the left main, probably the patient may still be healthy. That is my take on that. Thank you.
Okay, so Achyut, very well done case in the circumstances in which you were there, with this ST elevated MI. So I do think that the end result was very good. So my only two questions to the experts will be, how would you manage it? Would you, if at all, use any hemodynamic support to give you more confidence to buy some more time so that you can place your stent properly in the left main? Because left main is one such entity, where you need to cover the ostium well, and you need to spend some time at least, because in the end, as in your case, you ended up in using 2 layers of stent in the left main, which I think would be not a very advised, to be put 2 layers of stent in the left main. However, your case is doing well, but I would like to have the opinions of our expert, Dr. Suresh, and then Dr. Narale, and then what the panelists have to tell. Can you go off your share screen, please, Achyut?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Suresh and Dr. Narale. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, commendable to do this case and to get out of it. But yes, this is a common problem whenever you have a stent which is hanging in the aorta. Trying to recannulate is extremely difficult. But you ought to keep on trying it, because leaving it hanging like that and leaving, yes, your patient's then for 2 years, but you really don't know when he's suddenly going to come up with a stent thrombosis. Yes, you have done a post. Luckily for you, you had actually deployed a 4 milliliter with a stent, and you deployed it there. So that was the one good thing that happened in this particular case. Imagine if that had happened and you had not deployed the stent, then you are in a bigger soup with more immediate problems with the patient. What I tend to do when I see something like this happen, and this has happened to all of us in the past, till we learned how to actually position the stent at the ostium. One of the tricks I do is I float another wire, which I keep it into the aorta, so my stent guide doesn't hit the stent at the ostium. So that's one way of doing that, to prevent, even if you lose something, you'll be in there. The second thing is to use what I call a flotation technique, is to get there near the ostium of your stent and then try and see if you can get a wire through. You need to try it enough times. You are never really sure whether you've gone through the strut and then back inside, but that's what you would probably land up doing if you want to do something. And ideally, when you're doing the left main ostia, you need to flare that ostia up, because that makes life easier for us to recannulate the vessel in the future if that was required. So these are 2 things you need to do. Yes, you got a 4 milliliter stent, great. You couldn't flare that ostia up, and that's where the problems is now in trying to cannulate. The issue is not just stent thrombosis or recurrence of lesion. What if the patient comes back in new disease distally? You won't even know, because cannulating that left main is going to be mighty difficult at best of times. So that's the problem there. Complications related to the left main stent is one. It's the long-term side of things. This patient is now going to be a very difficult angiography patient.
What I feel was the wire not passing was because of a large amount of stent was into the into the aorta.
Yeah.
And this problem could have, even if I was able to flare that stent, and later there was stenosis somewhere else in the circumflex or LLD, the same problem would have occurred then also.
Yeah, but when you flare the stent, you actually would then want to distort the stent which is in the aorta. So that will make your life a little easier. It may not solve the problem, but it may just try and make it a little easier. That's all.
A couple of comments. One is, I saw some haziness there in left main at the beginning of the study. It was acute infarct, so it probably was a thrombus. Did you do some thrombus aspiration? That is one thing.
Most of the times I don't do it, sir. Means if it's a young patient, a lot of thrombus in whole of the artery, then only I use a extraction catheter or thrombosuction.
The problem is,
sorry, sir.
sure.
This is the question I have always wondered. When there is a proximal LAD stenosis and when there's a complete occlusion of the artery, whenever we put in a wire, the distal artery flows well once we inject. Why is that so? I probably think that because there's a stenosis which has been happening for quite a long time, and the artery beyond that stenosis has some or the other microchannels which that artery is being perfused with, and therefore there is not a thrombus beyond that stenosis.
no,
Whereas in younger people, when there is only plaque erosion or rupture, the whole artery gets thrombosed beyond that stenosis, and therefore we need thrombosuction in those arteries rather than older people or stenosed arteries, because the arteries beyond that stenosis does not have a large amount of thrombus.
I would tend to disagree, because many of these patients if I have, in fact, my routine practice in all acute infarct setting, whether you see a thrombus or you don't see a thrombus, I do a thrombosection, whatever the literature might say, because many times I have been able to aspirate thrombus, and sometimes when I've got into the trouble, when I've tried to hurry up the case and put in a stent or a balloon, I've landed in the problem of no flow, slow flow. And especially in such cases where you have a suspected thrombus in left main, many times when you put in a stent or a balloon, that thrombus tends to get dislodged into one of the branches, and you occlude some OM branch, and that sort of a thing happens. Yes, many times this is resistant to thrombus aspiration. You will not be able to aspirate thrombus, that's fine. But more often than not, that you will be able to aspirate the thrombus and avoid the problems later on. Theory apart, because this is when you have a left main situation, you should do everything, leave nothing to chance. That's what my thinking is. That's one thing. The second thing is, when you are putting a stent into a left main ostium, to know where the left main ostium is very crucial. And perhaps you have to use multiple views. In some views, perhaps you may feel this is an ostium, and it might be a forced shortening, and you might really miss an ostium, as you probably had the problem in this case. So that's the second thing. So use multiple views and see that whether you are covering ostium well. The other point which I would like to, perhaps this was a case when perhaps IVUS would have made a difference, when you didn't know whether you had a stent which was covering the ostium or it was not. Maybe IVUS would have helped you and avoided one more stent, as probably you had a problem there, one more stent. The other point which I would like to make, when you are not perhaps now able to get a shoot this thing. This is a case because this patient can have sudden death. We know, because we have not been able to do a case in an ideal way. In such patients, one should go ahead and do a elective angiography, maybe 6 months down the line, to know what's happening there. If it's not possible, at least get a CT angio and see whether what's going on, because these patients are going to have sudden death and they might not reach you. Okay, so these are the couple of points which I'd like to make.
Any other points? Any panelists would? Dr. Tiwari, Dr. Anil?
Yeah, I agree with the other people who have said that. I think thrombosuction maybe I also prefer. And actually it was not a bifurcation, it was a trifurcation, although the ramus was not that 2.5 millimeter vessel. But okay, I mean, considering the seriousness of the situation, we can accept that, yes, left main was more important rather than that ramus. But yeah, as Dr. Vijayan had said, subsequently when we need to, if the patient has symptoms and if he survives this, then it will be very difficult challenge to put across a stent, through that stent or maybe struts or where, I don't know. But yes, the valid points of CT angiography also is a valid point. I agree with that also.
Yeah, so this patient, Achyut, had a very dominant circumflex also. And as Vijayan said, ostial stenting is very, very important in left main, or even for right coronary artery for that matter. For example, if you have to do subsequent interventions, you will not be able to do. And therefore, to fix up the ostium properly is of utmost importance. And one of the way, sometimes the ostium can be very large and you may not have, it is like a gramophone, old gramophone, where the ostiums are very large and the left main maybe actually not. But still you have to oppose the strut of the stent across to the wall of the aorta. And therefore there is another technique for that, what is called ostial flash balloon, available. So those ostial flash balloons are something like our Inoue balloon, You can put the balloon into the left main of that size, say 5 mm. The distal part will open first to 5 mm. And then the proximal part is like a big globe, or a big bubble, which will flare up the stent in the ostium and plaster it against the wall. And that will help you to re-engage even if you are supposed 2 struts, 3 struts are outside, but it will opposite to the wall of the aorta and therefore make re-entry of your catheters for future interventions very, very easy. So this is one of the new technique of ostial flash balloon which is being used. We don't have available here right now. I don't know whether anyone has used it.
No, I don't think it's available in India as yet.
It's not available. It is FDA approved in USA. Suresh, yeah. It is available in USA and it is FDA approved, that ostial flash balloon.
But it has also some problems with dissections with the ostial flash. Not the aortic, the main aorta dissections were more one thing. And the second thing for this, ostial, except finding the ostium, as Dr. Vijayan said, that keeping a wire. And I think preparing left main well so that you don't have to hurry for doing a left main, I think is very critical for the left. You have to hurry while doing a left main. Then
But many times, you may talk all these things, but many times in the clinical scenario, in the cath lab, when you have such a patient who is crashing or a left main which is occluded, you are forced to do something which you may not like always.
Yeah, true.
And therefore,
So, yeah.
After dilation, I think patient was. I don't know whether Achyut knows whether after dilatation whether he was stable or not. Then actually that also
Sorry, I didn't hear you, sir.
to stabilize as far as possible while doing left main, as far as possible.
Stabilize what?
To stabilize the patient while doing left main stenting, you did balloon first, then the patient did stabilize or not.
Yeah.
So when the patient was stable, then I think
That's the time to do, yeah.
That was critical. And preparing the left main so that in the first go only while doing left main, you go to good pressure like 16 or 18 also. Sometimes the stent comes out while pulling the wiring out because the left main is huge and you are dilated. So the stent is not well opposed. So many times even stent is pulled, even if you are, exactly sized it, exactly positioned it, the stent may have, pulled because of the wire.
Yes,
Also. It is also possible. So, first instance only while putting a patient with higher pressure.
Sure, yeah. First time itself.
Anyone, Dr. Prasad, you are very quiet, you have unmuted yourself, unmute yourself first. You are muted, unmute yourself first and then speak.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just thinking of that ostial flash balloons. It's been seen. I've seen Samin Sharma doing for an RCA, but this we could use it. If you could cross it through that whichever strut cells you can, and then you can crush the remaining part, and that can access. Like it's not available here. So that would be one of those things where you could cross and then dilate it, and then if you need be, use another stent to keep it properly open so you can go back in again.
ठीक है.
The sizing is the same. One is
नाही का प्रॉब्लेम कसा होता काल जरा आमची सेशन जरा फ्युमिगेशन मध्ये होती काल. होतं तर.
Okay.
Sorry, didn't get your.
So
no, the size of the balloon. How do we select the size of the balloon for the ostium? According to the distal vessel, or is it something different?
which one? Ostial flash balloon?
Yeah.
Yeah. According to the distal left main size, and then the proximal will flare up like a balloon, like a big sphere, and that will oppose it against the walls of the aorta, even if you have 2-3 struts hanging
There are
outside.
two markers on that balloon. One is the
there are
distal
two
marker,
markers.
which
So you can
remains inside the
exactly,
vessel,
exactly.
and the other marker is at the ostium. So
Ostium.
clearly that marker, then it flares outside. You don't want that kind of balloon flare inside the left main, and that will be a disaster. So that flares outside and opposes the stent. That's how
It's like a mushroom. Yeah.
Yes, it's like a mushroom. That's right. Correct.
Markers are, where are the markers?
The one distal marker, which is inside, which goes inside. The second is where your ostium is. So you place the balloon that way so that the second marker, which is inside the balloon, is at the ostium of the artery. So the flaring bit occurs outside. And it's only meant for left mains. It can't be used, or in the RCA. You can't use it anywhere else.
No, you can use in RCA also the same balloon.
Yeah.
You can use
Either
in
RCA.
Means it is one of the solution for treatment of osteal problems that we have after stenting, when you leave too many struts outside. Okay, so if there are no more questions, then can we move to the third presenter? Can I ask Dr. Irshad Pathan if he is ready? Irshad, can you unmute yourself first?
Yes.
Yeah, welcome Irshad.
Yes,
and you are ready for the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, share your screen first.
Very good morning to all my seniors. I thank all and everyone for allowing me, giving this opportunity. And this I'm sharing. Okay.
Yeah, we can see your slides.
Okay, sir. So this was a case which was done on an emergency basis. And that was a Saturday evening when we got this patient. My patient was Yeah, she was a 71-year female patient, hypertensive, non-diabetic. She was having angina and dyspnea NYHA class 2 since 1 year. She presented to us with rest angina since 2 days. So this was the ECG, which was suggestive of QS in V1, V2 with ST elevation, probably a valence sign positive. And we asked for angiography. The enzymes were positive. Tropty was positive with that patient. And we asked for angiogram. I don't know why slides are not running now. We did a trial, but still not running. I'm sorry for this. I don't know.
Dr. Pathan, you may want to unshare your screen and start again.
Yeah, it's running now.
Okay.
So we did an angiogram. Angiogram was suggestive of critical triple vessel disease. She was a case of NSTEMI. Enzymes were positive. Creat was 1.4. And we discussed with the relative in view of triple vessel disease. First plan was given CABG. This is angiogram. This is not an angiogram. We need to take her for a rescue PCI. I give a brief history about this patient as we took her in for angiography in view of NSTEMI and suggestive of triple vessel disease. The triple vessel disease was critical from osteoproximal LAD and RCA was codominant total. So the ideal plan was CABG. However, when we shifted her in the ward after 2 hours of observation in radial launch, she complained of chest pain. So the chest pain was ECG was suggestive of ST elevation myocardial infarction. We shifted her in ICCU and given her plan of thrombolysis. So she was thrombolized. However, her chest pain was continuous for 2 hours, and we observed her in ICCU for 2 hours. Nearly 8 p.m. was there, and the relatives were very apprehensive. And the plan of CABG was out for nearly 1 week to 2 weeks in view of thrombolysis. However, there was no ST segment resolution. And post thrombolysis, we asked the relative, the patient is having continuously chest pain. So what is our plan was to wait for some time and be with the patient if her BP settles down, because her NORAD requirement was high. One of the relatives was doctor. They insisted on can we do some coronary intervention in this case. We all have to be aware about the nature of the disease. We need 7 French, so femoral was a route of choice. But in view of post thrombolysis situation, the chance of percutaneous bleed from femoral artery was high. However, we gone ahead with that because of her clinical condition was not improving. She was having persistent angina. Blood pressure was very low. And we did this shoot again. The vessel was open. However, there was critical osteoproximal LAD disease and angina was persistent. This is a cranial shoot which is suggestive of the dimension of left main to LAD. Our plan was simple: do a left main to LAD because LAD was occluded, and RCA to live now. Left main to LAD will solve our problem. So we planned, and for protection, because of this codominant LCX, we protected with a wire. We ballooned with 2.5. And the check shoot was suggestive of TIMI 3 flow. Fortunately, we had a good flow. We positioned 3.5 by, 3 by 38 onyx stent here. And we confirmed the position in various views and then inflated the stent. After inflating, we had a sigh of relief with blood pressure was borderline 80 to 90 systolic on NORAD of 10 ml per hour, and her angina gradually decreased. This was proximal optimization of the 3O stent with 4O balloon in left main, and we again optimized at ostium. This was 3O balloon for the LAD. First we optimized the left main stent, then 3O balloon in prox LAD. All was going very fine, and this I used to do. I demag the screen, then I pull back the guide to remove the wire. I was done with the case. This was proximal optimization. I checked it. However, the recordings are not there, but I checked and everything was fine. I just demag, pulled the guide up, then was removing the LCX jailed wire to reintroduce it again. So to my surprise, there was again shock. There was shock for the patient with blood pressure of 70 to 60 systolic. We saw which took a shoot, and that was suggestive of LCX got closed. We didn't find any reason exactly. I just wanted to ask the panelists about that LCX acute closure. However, we immediately started with CPR. We given injection adrenaline and started with CPR, and then immediately the LAD wire was pulled back and introduced in LCX. A balloon, NY balloon 2O was used to restore the flow in LCX. LCX flow was restored here, and then we again found a sigh of relief. There was a dissection dye. The dye staining was there in LCX ostium. It was difficulty for me to cannulate the LED wire again, but however we succeeded. And there was dye attached to the ostium, so we found we need to fix with a stent. I again placed a stent of 2.7 by 5 by 12 mm in LCX ostium and reverse crushed it. This was final kissing and 4.5 balloon port in LMCA, and this is a final shoot. The patient underwent a successful angioplasty here. I didn't have OCT with me or IVUS, but clinically patient settled down. We waited for 15-20 minutes. No issues with left circumflex. It was optimized with 3O balloon and 3.5 balloon. The kissing was done with 3O in left circumflex and 3.5 in LAD, and final port with 4.5 balloon in osteoproximal left main. Patient is with me in follow-up since last 4 to 6 months, and she is doing okay. She was started on tablet ticagrelor 90 mg BID, and she is doing well. I just wanted to ask the panelists about my issue with that acute closure of the left circumflex, whether this can happen with removing of the left circumflex jailed wire. Like if we remove the wire, can it cut through the ostium of the left circumflex? That was my question, because I did port very nicely. Till that time, the circa was flowing very well. Immediately I pulled up the wire from the left circumflex, the vessel was acutely closed and there was hypotension, because that was the only feeding vessel for codominant circulation. RC was 100%. So I need to restore that flow. Patient is very fine post plasty, and she is doing well since last 5 months, and the drugs are being continued. Thank you.
Okay. So very well done, Ishad. Case under the circumstances, and almost your heart was in the mouth when the circumflex closed and you had to give massage and think what to do and what was the cause. So what is the guess, Suresh and Gurunath, why did the circumflex close down? Whether it was pulling of the wire, or whether the thrombus had gone from the left ostial disease into the circ, or whether something else has occurred, during that episode. What do you feel, all of you? Suresh, you are muted. Yeah.
Okay. I think what I think is probably happened is when you pull that wire in, you look at the angle in which you're pulling your wire, and when you're getting a guide out, you're actually shearing some part of your circumflex.
As
And
well as
that's
the left main.
As well as the left main. And I think that's what's probably caused the circ to close down. That is again confirmed by the fact that there is dye staining in the circumflex. So something happened to the intima of your circumflex, and that's why the artery closed down. And I mean, you've done it very well. You were good enough to go down, get that thing, a wire into the LED wire into the circ, and then take care of this. But I think that's what's probably happened. So why your thing got sheared up there. The other thing is, of course, you use a 3 millimeter balloon to do the LED, and then you must run it across the ostium of the circumflex. So that may well have been another area where things could have gone wrong.
But we generally do ballooning at osteoproximal LAD segment, and is there any chance of dissection of that ostium of circumflex during that procedure?
I don't think your balloon would do the dissection. No, I think it's the wire which has caused the problem for you.
Okay, so the cutting effect of that wire, the pull and
yeah, so you have a wire,
effect of that wire.
You have a stent, and then you have a balloon inside which is pushing it. So the whole thing got crushed to one side, and that's the reason why if you're doing pot or anything like that, one advises that you pull your side wire out.
Any other guess, Dr. Gurunath? What do you feel? Why did the circumflex close down all of a sudden when he pulled the wire, or whether it was something else that had occurred in between? Stop scaring your screen, Irshad, so that we can see everyone, you know. Yeah, Gurunath, any comments on that? Okay, he's not there. Anyone else want to comment, Dr. Anil?
Actually, sir, actually I missed it because of the internet.
Okay, Dr. Prasad, would you want to comment anything?
I think it would be most probably the wire which is sheared through the ostium, which would be there. The other thing would be is that the thrombus, which was once you remove the wire, the thrombus could have gone down. But that seems less likely because his check shoot showed that there was no thrombus. The flow was clean in both the.
So let me ask you then, you know, how do you remove that wire, jailed wire then, you know, what precautions or what additional measures you will do to, because I think he must have sheared because he must have pulled it little harder, you know, and that must have changed the angle of the guiding catheter also. So what precautions you will take to remove such a wire when it is jailed?
I think what you should do actually is you put a rotator on the wire and rotate your wire as you're pulling it back.
Or you put a micro catheter there, you know, take your micro catheter down and then you can, so that
you just rotate the wire and just keep on tracking it back, and that usually works in most cases.
But I think the micro catheter would have done.
Maybe, sir, you can disengage the guide also slightly, otherwise it will get pulled in, and that can deform the stent or hit.
But disengaging the guide will put more traction on the wire, you know. We'll put more traction on the wire, do more shearing of the left main also.
But this rotating of the wire, I do most of the time. It works very well, even for a very, you know, severely trapped wire. And that is what actually in doing a left main, the wire should not be jailed, because that's where the problems occur. So
usually the angle is 90. That's the problem. If the angle is like that, it's very easy. There's no issue at all. It's when you have an angle like that, that's where the cut will occur.
But
as far as possible, what happens, you know, we first try to stent it at a lower pressure and then try to remove the wire. Then the stents, you know, get deformed.
Yeah, but Anil, many of the operators, you know, very experienced operators in the West, they recommend that you should keep the jailed wire as far as possible, so that when you can use a third wire as a marker to enter into the circumflex again, you know. So all in all, you have to be careful in removing that jailed wire, you know, as you say, by twisting and rotating motion, or by putting a balloon there or micro catheter, so that you don't put more shear and stress on the wire when you're removing it.
Yes, yes.
Any other comment?
Yeah, this was
used wire?
No, sir, it was fresh wire. Both the wire were fresh.
Okay, I want to ask the panelists, can some material get scraped off even in a fresh wire, and that can get dislodged at the ostium of the left circumflex, causing a thrombus?
Yes, yes, very well. You know, not only wire, even the balloons have been left. Balloon material, this material of the balloon has also been scrapped and left inside the left main and LED, and then they have found it, you know, when they have removed it along with the snares or on autopsy. So it is not uncommon, you know, And previously, Suresh, they would always tell that you don't use the hydrophilic wire for gelling,
Yes. Yes.
But now the concept has reversed. You say
Yeah.
that hydrophilic wires are still better
Better,
than
in fact.
the
Yeah.
workhorse wire that you are using,
Yes.
for gelling it, because it is
Oh,
easier to pull
I
it out.
think what's happened is the stents have got better.
Yeah,
Earlier,
stents
we had
are-
stainless steel stents, which were rigid, which would hold on to things and won't allow things to come out. Today, the stents are much better,
Yeah.
so it's
And
easy to
most of these
retrieve.
problems also occur when the lesions are calcific. This is
Calcific,
very
that's another
common
issue.
when the lesions are calcific.
Calcified.
Calcified.
Sir, I would like to give a
Any-
comment.
Yeah, please go. Gaurav, please go ahead.
Yeah, sir, in some of the cases when the side branch is very precious, very important, in such cases after pot we can have a recross into the side branch so that the side branch is secured. So it helps us in two ways. One, we can do the post dilatation of the main branch stent more confidently with higher pressure with larger NC balloons. And in case if there is a plaque shift or carina shift or thrombus shift, we already have a wire inside, and many of the times we can just get away with the final kissing balloon. We may avoid the side branch stent. So this I would want to say. So if the side branch is very important, after pot, if we recross with a wire, that can make the procedure easier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gaurav, what is to be done about the jailed wire?
The jail wire has to be come out once we recross into the side branch.
So that is all the issue about that only. He faced that issue about the jailing of the wire, which sheared across the
What
circumflex.
Gaurav's point is, had you put another wire in first and then pull the jailed wire out,
you will be safe.
Okay, yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
But the problem was that it closed before you could put that
think
another
about
wire,
it. Yes.
So I think in the cath lab the scenarios are many times different than what we think outside.
Outside.
That's true.
Yeah. So are we done with Irshad? Irshad, any more comments you want to give? How is your patient doing? Now.
Sir, she's doing very well. She's with follow-up every monthly. Her ECG echoes are normal.
Before I go to the third presenter now, there was one question, so in that first patient of Dr. Achyut, where he had put 2 stents in the left main, the viewer want to ask what was your antiplatelet regime after that and for how long you would continue? Would it continue endlessly or you will just give it for 1 year or what?
So I have been continuing dual antiplatelet with ticagrelor as the first antiplatelet, and now for 2 years he is continued on ticagrelor.
Okay, so but what is your plan? You will continue forever or what you will be doing now?
I think so, sir.
I think forever.
Till he has a bleeding event, Till he has a bleeding event. Okay.
No, it's going to be a very difficult decision to take in such cases, given that the stent is hanging and floating in the aorta. To leave him on just one antiplatelet, that will be a very difficult decision.
Right.
But I think at this stage also, CT angio is, I think, warranted.
Should do it, yeah.
Whenever he comes for next follow-up, I'll do.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think Pegasus 54 data also shows that you can easily give 60 milligram of 60 BD.
For 36 months.
Yeah, maybe at least he can make it 60.
Okay. Any more questions on Irshad's case? If there are no.
Yeah, one comment, the last comment that this was a tap, not a reverse tap. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is fine. So can we move to the third presenter now, Dr. Kaustup? I can see you on the screen. Are you ready for your presentation? Share your screen. Unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yes, very clear.
And my slides are seen well?
Yeah, we can see your slides also well.
Okay. Good morning, sir. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. I'm working in peripheral center in Parbhani and started cath lab for last 3 months. And this was the case of left main primary angioplasty.
Unable to hear.
Trifurcation lesion. Can you hear, sir?
Yeah, we are able to hear.
Now it's better.
Yeah, this was a case of left main primary angioplasty in patient with anti-wall MI with a trifurcation lesion. And I'm working in peripheral center in Parbhani and started cath lab just 3 months back. This case of 60-year male who has no comorbidities presented with anti-wall STEMI with a window period of 3 hours with QRBB and severe LV dysfunction. He was really restless and in hypotension. I have to start him on noradrenaline drip to stabilize his blood pressure. And there was a little bit delay of arranging staff and everything. So I gave him injection tirofiban as a infusion before shifting him to cath lab because it was almost a delay of 1 hour while patient decision making and shifting patient on table. So this was his angiography, which shows mild RCA disease in proximal segment, and this was the left side with ostial 80% stenosis, and there was ostial left main and ostial LAD 90% stenosis was seen. And the ramus also has tight lesion of 70%. Actually, ramus is dividing immediately into 2 branches in this patient. So after proper discussion with family and risk was explained to them, and almost 40% mortality risk was explained, and they agreed for the procedure and shifted to femoral root with 6 French sheath. And initially I tried with JL because I wanted to do from left main to LAD stent, but it was not hooking properly. So I shifted to 6 French EBU 3.5 and cannulated LAD with the Swan blue wire. Prior to stenting, I did balloon inflation with 2 into 10 SC balloon, followed by 3 into 12 NC balloon at 12 and 15 atmosphere for proper bed preparation. Patient was maintaining well on 3 ml of noradrenaline, and then I put proximal LAD 326 onyx stent, and with the same stent I dilated left main up to 16 stent balloon. I dilated left main up to 16 atmosphere, followed by stenting of left main to LAD overlap stent of 3.5 into 34 onyx at 12 atmosphere, and then I pulled it to flare the ostium of the left main in little 10-degree LAO and cranial position to say properly the left main ostium, and I dilated the balloon up to 20 atmosphere just to flare the ostium. Later, post-stent dilatation was done with 3 into 15 NC for proximal LAD stent, and then ostial LAD stent was dilated with 3.5 into 12 NC at 18 atmosphere, and pot was done with 4 into 9 NC at 18 to 20 atmosphere. And once after this procedure, patient suddenly became restless and he had more hypotension. I have to increase the noradrenaline to 7, and I can see the TIMI1 flow in the ramus here. So I immediately cannulated with other wire in one branch, and second branch also was cannulated with other BMW wire. You can see the position of patient is displaced here because he was restless and moving on table. I first cannulated the ramus with 1.25 into 10 SC balloon and just dilated the strut entering into the ramus. Then I did put 2 into 9 NC balloon in ramus and 3 into 15 NC balloon in LAD, and simultaneously dilated it up to 10 atmosphere to do kissing balloon inflation. Post kissing balloon inflation, his pain subsided and there was TB3 flow and ramus. As there was immediate division of ramus into 2 branches, I just wanted to keep it simple and I didn't stent that vessel because stenting here will be quite complicate the case, and I will lose one or the other branch. So I decided to just accept my result of kissing balloon inflation. I waited on table for 15 minutes and just confirmed that flow was optimal in ramus, and patient was doing well. So I came back. Such procedures, take home message is additional support of IVP or ECMO is always better in such kind of patients, and we need to explain family very well about the condition of the patient, especially when we are working at peripheral centers with minimal support. And this patient took almost 10 days to go home post procedure, and he was on noradrenaline support for 3 to 4 days initially, and then I have to do his check angio also after 7 days because he had increase in the ST elevations at 7th day, but everything was perfect and I could discharge him in stable condition.
Okay. So Kaustubh, can you stop sharing your screen,
Yes, sir.
So under the circumstances in your place, I think you did an excellent job, So I have two these questions, When you are going through femoral, whether you will use 6F or 7F for this patient,
This
And second
patient,
is whether you will always start with EBU, because people now don't use Judkins for left main, even for the osteal disease no more. So
okay.
can I ask the experts, both Suresh and Gurunath, if they are present, how you will start, with this if you are in the same situation as Dr. Kaustubh was?
What I would do.
Can you stop sharing your screen, Kaustubh, first?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
okay, fine.
Okay, I think what I would have done in this particular case is when I shifted to the groin, I would have gone with the 7 fresh to begin with. No doubt at all. I mean, to me, that's the default thing to do. Second is, while doing a case, I would have wired the ramus. Because what you could have is you're dealing with an infarct, you're dealing with a lesion there, and you've got a big 2 branches of ramus there and a small circ. Losing them would cause problems, and that's what you actually noticed. So clearly, wiring it before you did anything would have been much more easier, because then that would have given you an option of doing what you finally did, which is use it, stretch it apart, etc. So I would have preempted that because I would have anticipated that this was likely to happen. Otherwise, I think you've done a good case.
What about the catheter selection, EBU or Judkins nowadays? What do you prefer?
EBU is by default catheter. So I just don't.
Dr. Nitin, any comment on that? What you do for left main? Dr. Nitin?
Yeah, I by default only use EBU because that has a lot of support. And at times, the JL is nearly outdated until unless I face maybe 1 in 100 case, really, guiding is not fitting it. Then only
so
I might think of.
I think prudence remains in using the EBU catheter, whether it is by radial or by even if for a left main osteal stenosis, because you get good backup support. Otherwise, you will start having problems immediately after that.
And apart from the 7 French and the wiring the ramus, which I totally agree, I would have also done the same. I don't agree with the take-home message which he has given. Such patients need IABP or.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think no. I think totally you run into problems. You don't want to give an IABP.
A lot of complications. It's not worth. Just put a wire in the ramus and you will be.
You're done actually, and that's what you did. And I think the thing to learn from your particular case is to wire that ramus.
Wire the ramus.
You don't want to create a complication. You want
and that was just because he had used 6 French. He had used 6 French. That created the problem for another wire and with bulb.
No, but you could have still wired even with 6F.
Yes,
though you should have used 7F, but you could have still wired it. Any other comment, Dr. Prasad?
Yeah, I just had one comment. So did you? It was a very long left main. So did you overlap it or did you keep 2 separate stents?
No, it was overlapped.
I overlapped in the LAD, sir, not in the LMCA.
So there are 2 stents separate in the left main, the distal left main and the ostial. Yeah, that's fine.
Left main has only 1 stent, sir.
Only 1 stent in left main. Overlap was done in LAD, which was a very, very correct and wise decision,
Yeah. And that can contribute to losing the ramus. 2 layers of stent.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ramus is what may have added.
No, sir. The overlap was in the proximal segment of
keep your mic, Kaustubh, keep your mic near your,
The overlap was in the LAD away from the ostium of and trifurcation. So I made sure that I'm not putting extra metal in that same area.
Okay.
And RCA I didn't cannulate with wire just because ramus I didn't cannulate with wire because it was more in line with the LMCA. So I thought even if I can cannulate it later also.
Yeah, which you have done, But it's just about trying to prevent a problem from happening.
Yeah. I think it would have been always wise to wire that vessel, to avoid problems.
The other thing was about the.
Actually, I also use EB only by default. Judkins, JL I have not used since like years.
Yes.
And
I had a point
so
on that.
as Dr. Vijan said correctly, that you have to have wire in the other branch, which is so important. You just if you have completely disappeared,
Sir,
then
would
it
you
would
have
have been.
stented that ramus?
No, no.
No.
That
What
was
you did
good.
is right thing. But
That was a good
keeping a wire, if you are, so there was a slow flow. But if you were completely occluded, then you could have been in trouble. Where to find it?
Where to find it?
That is an issue. So sometimes it's very catastrophic when it completely closes, and it gives you no time to find out where the origin is and where. So at least for marking that and changing the angle also, what they say is, I think keeping a wire was important. Otherwise, you did actually what is.
Yeah, the
perfect.
result was
In fact,
quite good.
IBP, I completely agree. It leads to so many problems. I have not used IBP in years. It's absolutely not essential. Once you open the artery, it's the BP jumps up and the patients come out.
Yeah. True, and in the presence of, in the setting of STEMI, it is more important to perfuse the artery than to waste your time. And if you have no second hand available in your cath lab, I don't think you should waste your time for that. Prasad, you wanted to tell something,
Yeah, I was just saying this regarding the using a Judkins. If you're doing an ostial left main, sometimes what happens with the EBU, it gets sucked in. Positioning the stent at the ostium can sometimes be an issue. So if it's a distal left main, I use EBUs. But if I'm going to also tackle the ostium of the left main, then maybe I also think about using a Judkins.
That's fair.
Because actually, Prasad, you can just keep a wire outside the ostium, outside the,
Yeah, the
and
trick
then
is to float a wire in the aorta.
Float the wire, and then it will, it will not.
Yeah, but when you are stenting the left main, I think support is very important, and therefore EBU scores over that Judkins in that situation,
Yeah, the JL just backs up and it completely,
Therefore, many times when you want to stent the ostium, you miss it, because it shifts out,
But the minimum you can expect from a JL is at least the left main ostium, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Any more questions, Dr. Gaurav? You want to answer any queries here on anything?
Sir, even in left main ostium, we use EBU with a side hole so that you can keep it floating with, and along with that, we can have an additional wire, so that helps in optimal left main ostial positioning.
So, do you agree with that? I don't know whether putting a side holes in this.
Why you require a side hole for?
Because it gives a false sense of security to you. False. If you have damped it, you will even not know, what your distal circulation is undergoing at that time.
No, but the side hole will not give you exact ostium. It has to come out of the main hole.
Yeah.
Then only you can
plus Anil, it will give a false sense of security that your pressures are well and nothing is happening into the distal circulation, which is wrong. I think we should abandon that process of making side holes in the catheter. This will help you not only in avoiding this jamming of the catheter, it will also entail less dye going into the circulation, because most of the dye goes away into the aorta. You can't see the vessels properly when you have side holes in it. And it doesn't give you any advantage, I feel.
Keep the wire floating is the best trick.
I think that is the better one. Yeah. So well done. Of course, it was a very nice case, and a good learning from that case, that you should always use a 7F catheter if you're going through femoral, preferably, because there's no harm in that. You have to wire the side vessels as far as possible in all cases, however simple it may look, because you never know in a setting of STEMI, compromising the other vessel brings disaster immediately, So these are the two good things that I think you have done it, Okay. So can we move now?
Sir, I'm yet to present my case. So.
Yeah. So Gaurav, can you are ready?
Yes.
Okay. So share your screen now.
So my case is longitudinal stent deformation during left main angioplasty. So this is a 40-year-old gentleman, diabetic. First angioplasty was done in LAD and RCA 7 years ago. Now he has progressive angina class 2 to 3 for last 6 months and one episode of rest angina 4 days back. So this was the angiogram. You can see I am calling it a long left main, and there is one accessory LCX, small LCX in the shaft of the LCX and shaft of the LMCA, and the other one which actually supplies the real LCX territory that is at the bifurcation of LAD. Some people may call it a diagonal, but for all practical purposes, it is a LCX. So there is a distal left main disease which is extending into LCX, and there is some ostial LAD disease, and there is some healthy portion after that ostial disease, and you can see there is another tight lesion in the proximal LAD, which you can see in the epicranial view. So practically, I would call it a Medina 111. This is the still images. You can see distal LMCA, which is extending into the distal LMC lesion, which is extending into the LCX. Ostial LAD looks little narrowed. Then there is a tight lesion in the proximal LAD. So in this particular case, we thought of going for a DK crush. So wired both LAD and LCX, pre-dilated LCX with 3O NC balloon at high pressures. Now going with the stent in the LCX, this was a 3x38 ZES. Then after deployment of first stent, we crushed the proximal part of the stent with 3O NC balloon. After that, we recross the wire into the stent and go with the first kiss. And then the next step is second kiss, which is with left main to LAD stent. So here we go with 3.5 into 38 onyx stent. The classical steps, we do pot with 4O NC in this particular case. And now what happens is very interesting. The LCX is wired. You can see the wire inside the LCX. Wire went in very easily. However, the 1.5 millimeter balloon, which we take to open up the strut in front of the LCX mouth, so that is not going easily. Some efforts, but finally it enters. We dilate the struts in front of LCX ostium with 1.5 balloon. Then, since there was a difficulty in taking the 1.5 balloon, we are little slow. We go with a 2 millimeter balloon now, and that is not crossing. You can see here, the 2 millimeter balloon is not crossing from the proximal edge of the LMCA stent. And you can see the check engine on the right lower corner. There is some haziness at the proximal edge of the LMCA stent. So we thought we should do an imaging. So we try to take the IVUS towards the LCX, but that is not going. It was expected because the balloon itself was not going. So it was expected it may not go. But then we take the IVUS over the LAD wire. That goes very easily. And on the right side, you can see the LAD to LMCA pullback. So in this pullback, you can see that the LAD stent is yet post dilated, so it looks like little under expanded. And as we come proximally towards the left main, now you can see the crowding of struts and deformation of stent at the proximal edge of the stent. And you can clearly see that the left main, the part of the stent which is in left main, that is clearly under expanded. But that was expected in this particular case, since we had a LMCA which was large and LAD which was around 3.5 millimeter, and we had selected a 3.5 millimeter stent. And unfortunately, we had done pot only with a 4O NC. So probably this was a case where the wire has gone substrut rather than going into the lumen of the LMCA stent, and it did cross into the LCX. 1.5 balloon, because of the small caliber, small size, it probably with efforts it went into the LCX. However, the 2O balloon did not cross. So we removed the LCX wire, did a pot with 4.58 balloon again. But still you can see on the stent boost that the proximal edge of the stent is clearly deformed.
Yes.
So I think probably the repeat ballooning was not the option in this particular case. So we went ahead with another stent, which was a 4.5 into 12 millimeter onyx stent to cover the deformed part of the stent. So after that, we post dilated, and when pot was done with a 4.5 NC, You can see the stent has expanded well now. Then recrossing into the LCX was very easy. Even the balloon crossing was very easy, and the rest of the procedure was done without any issues. And this was the final result. So this was a case where probably the LMCA was very large, LAD was 3.5 millimeter. Based on the LAD diameter, we selected a 3.5 into 38 stent for LMCA to LAD. And probably the port was done only with a 408 NC. So that was probably little undersized. The stent was under expanded, and there was no apposition with the LMCA endothelium. So probably that was the reason why the wire went subintimally and it could cross into the LCX. And when we tried to take balloon inside, because of the balloon, the proximal edge of the LMCA stent got deformed. And imaging also confirmed that this same points, that our stent was little undersized for the LMCA size, and it was not well opposed. And that led to this deformation of stent. Now I'm going to another similar case. So this was a 65-year-old gentleman with unstable angina. You can see left main shaft and distal left main critical stenosis here. So again, the left main is very large compared to the size of LAD and LCX. And if you look at the epicranial view, you can see that there is some disease which is starting from the ostium of the LMCA. In this particular case, we did IVUS from both LAD as well as LCX. The main aim was to look at the size of the LMCA. That was one. Second, plaque morphology. And third, we wanted to see the ostium of the LCX, whether we can just get away with the provisional stenting from LMCA to LAD. So again, in this particular case, we could see that it was a fibrofatty plaque predominantly. There was some calcium, but which can be easily managed with OPN balloon or cutting balloon. And LMCA was really huge. LMCA was almost like 5.56 millimeter diameter. And fortunately, the LCX ostium was not critically diseased. There was some mild plaque at the LCX ostium, but nothing major. So aggressive bed preparation was done with 3 NC balloon and 3.5 cutting balloon. Then we go with a stent, and you can see the position of stent. We are aiming from left main ostium to proximal LAD. So immediately after the stent deployment, everything looks fine. Then we go with a port with a 4.5 millimeter balloon. Unfortunately, we did not have a 5.0 or 6.0 balloon with us on that particular day. So the only thing we had was a 4.5 millimeter balloon. And this is what happened. So if you look at the angio clip on the right side, what is happening is the port is done. Then we try to pull out the balloon, and when fluoroscopy wise, it looks like it is well deflated. And when we are trying to pull out the balloon, the guide gets sucked in, and it is hitting the LMCA stent. And this is what happens after that. You can clearly see in both the views that the stent has deformed significantly, almost like 5 millimeter or more. So this is a guide catheter induced longitudinal stent deformation. So we had to put one more stent from LMCA ostium to cover that deformed part of the stent. And after that, procedure was smooth. However, we did not perform any post-stenting IVUS in this particular case. The point to emphasize here is there are hundreds of case reports which shows that left main stents can get deformed during left main angioplasties, and the common steps where this deformation happens is most important is guide catheter movement, which can deform the stent, especially when the stent position is from left main ostium. when we are trying to remove the substrate wire, that can also, pull the guide catheter inside and can cause deformation of stent. The substrate wires during the recrossing to the side branch, and when we are taking balloon, as in our first case, so the wire was substrate and we are trying to take the balloon inside, so the balloon can actually hurt the stent and it can cause deformation. Sometimes in large diameter NC balloons, especially if it is a reused one, the profile is very large, and when we are trying to pull it out, especially if it is incompletely deflated, that can also cause deformation of stent. And sometimes delivery of imaging catheters like IVUS catheter, which is a large profile catheter, that can deform. And many times we have seen even guide extension catheters, GuideZilla, can also cause deformation of stents. And there are case reports where rarely the looped wires which are there in the vessels, when we are trying to pull it out, the loop gets hooked to the distal part of the stent, and that can deform the stents. So probably in this particular cases, especially in the first case, the imaging pre-procedure would have helped us in better planning of the case, especially in the deciding the diameter for the diameter of the balloon for the proximal optimization, and that would have actually avoided all these complications and would have avoided this additional stent in the left main ostium. So I think all these steps we need to take care of. These are two cases which I have encountered in last 6 years. So I thought I would share it so that the discussion becomes very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. V.K. Shah. Okay, I think we'll take it up. Gaurav, I think excellent examples of what causes stent deformation and how to plan and take care of it and all the causes.
Yeah, I've connected now.
Yeah,
I've connected. Wait, no, but this. Yeah. Video नहीं आते.
Connect via video.
Where is it? Okay.
Towards the bottom left, there'll be the start video button.
Yes, stop video, start video. हाँ, उसको चालू करो.
Everyone is having some problem. I think. No, video तो चालू रखना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. I think no one is seeing you.
Nobody can see you, VK.
Yeah, but I can't see anyone else, now.
Oh,
except me.
why is that? So we are seeing each other. We are all there on the screen. You're missing.
So what should I do?
So continue this way.
Back in again.
Okay, have you finished with the presentations?
I think, yeah.
Sir, due to the internet connection, Dr. V.K. Shah is getting, low connectivity.
Okay. So have you got any other presentation?
No, sir. We are done with the presentations.
Okay, then let's discuss. I think I was just mentioning that for Gaurav's case, I think excellent examples of how to look at stent deformation, particularly the importance, which I stress in my talk also, appropriate sizing of the port balloon. I think that is crucial, and you must be sure what you're dealing with at that time, because then you can prevent a lot of these problems that occur. So my view always has been that you have to prevent the complications from occurring. So your strategy could be to plan your case so you prevent all these complications from occurring, so you don't have to face this kind of thing. But yes, and an excellent bailout, restenting that. Sometimes just re-ballooning helps, but by and large, most of us would prefer to put another stent into that particular area of a stent deformation. What else? I think the second case, your port balloon was something that I was a little uncomfortable with when you were doing that. I thought it was too far into the LAD, and that I thought may give you some problems at the carina of ostium of the circumflex. There's actually something that I urge all of you to read, a very excellent paper from Ormiston's group from New Zealand on the positioning of the port balloon vis-a-vis in the lab, in the experimental lab, where they clearly shown that once you are not positioning a stent balloon prop, your porta balloon properly, you actually recrowd the ostium of the circumflex or the side branch, whatever it is. So your positioning of the distal marker of your balloon should be well into the carina, away from the carina, and they're given a points 1, 2, 3, 4, which is one is into the main body of the main branch, in the proximal mother branch, and not to do 3 and 4, which is more distal. So you stay away from the ostia of the circumflex branch, and that kind of, so it's something worth reading, but I think an excellent example of how things can happen and you don't see that. Because this is something that you will not see during angiography. Unless you image, you will not see that. If you do it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because I missed your Gaurav's very lovely case, because of internet, which was unstable here,
Okay.
But my views on this longitudinal shortening is one surest way to prevent longitudinal shortening is to use a double lumen microcatheter, So when you put a double lumen microcatheter, you are sure you are in the lumen, and with that double lumen catheter, you can cross the other artery easily, and then you can do whatever you want. Second point that I would raise, whether now there is a new stent which is available called Synergy Megatron, So longitudinal shortening is little less because Synergy Megatron has got more connectors at both its ends, So unlike the other stents, the longitudinal shortening is slightly less with those stents, So, but the best method to prevent you getting into the struts and coming out of it and going beneath it and all is to use a double lumen microcatheter. That's the surest way to prevent you from getting anywhere else, and which we seldom do it,
And it also makes life easy in cannulating the side branch. Because you can position
very easy. I think that is what we are not doing, and all of us should adopt that now, I think.
Yeah, that's something worth. That's just additional hardware again. When you're always talking about costing, it becomes a very big issue.
Any more, questions which were pertaining to this case? I think.
Just one comment or rather a question. In the first case, I think it was more of a LAD and diagonal bifurcation rather than left main. Because the first branch which is coming off after the actual left main is a very small circumflex. And at the end of the procedure, that circumflex is closed off totally. So, and technically it is not a left main, it's diagonal and LAD. But considering the size of the circumflex, it was like a single left main and LAD which was taking care of the left side of the heart.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, can I come?
Please,
one or two things for avoiding this longitudinal deformation, which was in the second case. I think again, floating wire will not suck in the guide in, and it will prevent longitudinal deformation. So that is very important while doing ostial stenting, so that the guide doesn't suck in. If it doesn't suck in, then there is less chance of getting that. And second thing is, whenever 1.5 millimeter balloon is not entering into the side strut, you should always think about that you have gone into the stent struts, and you should not force, but come out and dilate it. And again, in second case, your left main was very roomy, but you used a 4.5 balloon. So I'm just, wary about whether the left main looked 5.56.
Yes, it is quite a big left main. Yes, no question at all. Very big.
Yeah, so that was one thing which was, a bit of an issue. So these were, important things.
There's one comment in the first case. I mean, the angle was quite big, I believe, maybe 90, 100 kind of. So I don't think the decay crush was the only option. I mean, there were better options also. All the problems would have been.
In second case, the left main was very long, and the circumflex was coming a bit early. So I would even try to look whether the left main was coming submural, intramurally, because when sometimes left main comes intramurally, it gives early left circumflex, and after the circumflex, the portion can be intramural, and which has led to a stenosis like that. So I think it is better to do a CT and rule out whether that portion was intramural. One of the possibility.
Another, about the choice of bifurcation stenting, one must do whatever you are comfortable with, Don't go to the literature that decay crush is better and then the culotte and culotte is better than the T and all that, because I think if you see the literature, decay crush is coming from only one country, all the articles are from single country. no USA, no Europe. So I don't think you should get carried away. It may be good, we don't know. But I think the wisdom remains that whatever you are comfortable in the technique, you should follow that technique, because that way you are going to make less mistakes and errors in doing this, rather than doing a technique with which you are not familiar with, And about decay crush, which is so much more talked about, I feel that we should still keep it on the guard, because all literature comes from only one country, China. All.
See, the current EBC guideline still says provisional stenting is the strategy to go with. And what I tend to advise everybody is make sure you know 2 bifurcation stenting techniques. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And then you do the key is to do the techniques well. Not aim for this, that, or there. Know 2 techniques, do them very well. Make sure sizing is good, everything else is good, and you will get consistently good results. There's no issue at all. I take V.K. Shah's point on that all decay data just come from Shaolin's place and nobody else's, but that needs to correct. In fact, EBC Main, which is the trial going on at the moment in Europe, is exactly looking at decay crush versus everything else in the European setting. So I think we need to wait for data for that. Any technique to do very well should be easy to use across a wide variety of operators. That's when it becomes sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely.
One guy can do it and nobody else can do it. It's not never going to be a mainstream procedure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so in the first case, it was a dedicated 2-stent strategy. Correct. And the left main was very long, and even the stent required for LCX was quite long. It was almost like 38 millimeter stent. Yeah, so that is why we thought that it is better to place the LCX stent first. So we had options of mini crush and decay crush with that strategy, because recrossing and then going with a long stent through the long LMCA into the LCX, it can be very difficult at times. So that is why we had chosen decay crush as the strategy in that particular case.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what your appreciation of the side branch is. In this case, Circ being a son, it is a big side branch, long side branch, big size, and you choose to protect the side branch first. It's absolutely fair, no problem at all. That's the kind of thing, so long as you think rationally on those bases and act, that's fair enough.
One question I have.
Yeah, Achyut, please.
In a roomy left main, when we don't have the adequate size balloon with us at that point of time, is it a good idea to have the balloon the next day, do the case again and post dilate?
If it's selective, yes.
No, not a good idea, because you never know where your wire is going to go. So you got to finish it off in the first sitting.
If it is elective, you should postpone till you get...
Postpone the case and get the balloon and do it. Absolutely. But no point going in again. That's one of the problems that Gaurav faced when he went subintermediate, because there was a mismatch between the size of the stent and the left main. So you can go subintermediate. If you do it next day, definitely you'll go subintermediate. So no, not a good idea.
Sir, that brings me to my question. Like if as Achyut has said, if we are really in a problem, we don't have a 5 or 6 balloon and the left main looks like a huge left main. Then in dire situations, can't we use 2 balloons and accept the elliptical shape rather than a round shape?
Yes, you can use 2 balloons if you have no choice. But that's not ideal. Ideally, you want a circle. You want a round shape. But yes, you're going to do something like that and you have no other choice. Well,
rather than under expanded stent, if we have only 2 choices, under expanded stent or Mal-Apos stent or elliptical stent. So elliptical is preferable then?
Nobody knows that. Nobody knows which is the most preferred way of doing that. But certainly a floating stent is not a good idea at all. That much I can vouch for. That's not good at all. That will create more problems. But anything else, yes.
Anything else? Kaustav, you wanted to, because you are bringing your mic close to your mouth, you want to answer some?
Same question I wanted to ask, whether we can have that elliptical shape with 2 balloons in situation where we don't have larger size.
No, so far I think the literature says that circular shape is better than the oval shape, but in case if you don't have anything, then there is no point. So now the 6th presenter, Suresh, the 6th presenter is absent.
Okay.
So then it is almost time also to close down this meeting.
Okay.
So this was a very good meeting where we learned a lot of technical points from 5 different presenters, starting from Suresh Vijan, how in post-CABG patients, which was so big left main to circumflex, how we assess the size with IVERS and how you could obtain that 6 millimeter balloon, which we are not getting it, So it's a good thing to learn that we must have 6 mm balloon also on a shelf, to achieve a very good result. Otherwise, you may land up into a case where you will have ISR or you may land up into stent thrombosis also. Then the second presenter, Achyut Khandekar, did an excellent presentation where he had missed the ostium of the left main because his case was in a dire emergency, and many of us will come into the same problem when we are also doing the case, and he landed up in using 2 stents in the left main, which is always not a very good idea, but then to salvage the patient there was no other option. But the point to be taken note is that you must be careful in assessing the left main, and you must use ostium properly, and then place the stent properly using various techniques like floating wire and other things, so that you don't miss the ostium. Then the third case of Irshad Pathan, very well presented under his circumstances, and we learned from that case that always you must use a 7F if you are having a left main disease with trifurcation, because you may end up in using 3 wires, and therefore it is better to use a 7F through a femoral route. Also use always an EBU catheter, and always wire the side vessel, whether you feel it is important or not, because you never know. In particular, in a patient of STEMI, when you can compromise the other vessel, patient will end up into a cardiogenic shock. You were lucky to get out of that because you were able to wire it immediately, but every time all of us may not be that lucky, and so therefore we need to take care that we use a 7F, wire the side vessel as far as possible. There is no problem in wasting time on that, but that secures your this. Then Kaustubh's case, I think, that was also a left main disease which was done in an emergency. Again, the same, you used a 6F catheter. I would recommend that you should use a 7F and always a EBU catheter rather than the JL catheter which you used. And there was a point raised whether you should make hole in the catheters to get this, but I feel that is all not very good. To get a false security that your pressure is normal, because you don't know when you are jamming the catheter and compromising the distal circulation, and you may end up into a cardiac arrest and ventricular fibrillation by that time. Then Gaurav's case, I missed a bit in between because my internet connection was not bad, but I think that he presented 2 cases of left main and showed us the decay crush technique and how the longitudinal shortening was happened in the left main. And to counter that, as we all discussed, that the best technique for left main to wire into the other vessel is to use a dual lumen catheter. That is the surest way not to go under the struts or beneath that and come out of it. That's the best way. So all in all, our expert Dr. Vijan and our other expert Dr. Narale did an extraordinary job by giving us lots of tips and tricks. And all the panel member who always ticked in whenever they had some point to discuss, and all the 5 presenters did an excellent job, and we learned a lot of left main disease. Left main is going to be a continuous evolving strategy, and we need to get updated all the time with newer technologies, newer method, newer literature, which will be coming in due course of time. So with this, I thank the Translumina company, Shantanu Sinha, for arranging this seminar and educating all of us and my viewers also. Unfortunately, I could not get too many questions on my mobile.
Question that I've pushed to you on your chat, sir. You can.
Check. I have to push for that.
No, I've sent you a question on your Zoom chat.
Okay, so I missed those questions which I would have loved actually, because to keep the viewers in the meeting, we need to be very careful that we answer all their questions, and we learned a lot from them, because these are the questions that we are going to face when we are doing these cases all the time, So I'm sorry and apologetic for that I could not get those questions on my
sir, it is on your Zoom chat. You can check right now. You can open the chat in the Zoom.
Chat. If we have 2-3 minutes, Suresh, can we answer some of the questions in chats if we have?
Yeah.
Now what to do? I opened that chat,
I am sending you the chat, the question again.
Okay.
It will pop up on your screen, sir.
Okay, there is one question that is asked. Please ask Dr. Vijan how to use shockwave IVL in left main and what are the steps?
Oh, in left main. Okay, I think one of the issues for left main has been the size of the balloon. The shockwave therapy is not coming up with 4 and 5 millimeter balloons, which is what you need if you want to do a left main shockwave. So you need the sub balloons to come in with that kind of sizing. Otherwise, doing it, yes, you'll have to be a little careful, particularly if left main products. You can't leave the balloon up for too long, so you may have to deliver the shocks faster and deflate faster. So that's mainly the thing that you need to worry about. Biggest limitation currently is you don't have the right size to deliver the shock. You need the balloon to hold into the left main. Here, if you have a 5 mm left main, 3.5 will not hold. It will not deliver the energies the way you want it to deliver. So that's a bigger limitation at the moment.
And what pressure you should dilate the balloon, you know?
4 atmospheres only.
4 atmospheres.
The
Generally,
balloon is just to touch and hold it and anchor it.
Yeah,
it's not meant to provide any dilatation, force, nothing. It's just there to hold the balloon in place, and then the shock wave actually does that. In fact, my case, if you appreciated yesterday, in fact, you could see as the lesion started to give, the balloon started to look bigger, even with 4 atmospheres. So clearly, at 4 atmospheres, it hadn't fully expanded. And when the shock wave given and they started cracking, actually balloon got bigger. So clearly that is one. But what impressed me most about the technology is the way it fractured the calcification across that whole RCA. And then putting the stents in were like piece of cake. You know, everything just popped open, no high pressures required, nothing.
It's a definitely welcome armamentarium for our left calcific disease, you know, which we were unable to tackle even sometimes with our rotablation and cutting balloons and etc. You know. So any other questions, Shantanu?
So this is a bulky balloon, so you need to sometimes prepare.
Prepare.
No other questions. Just as an update, Dr. Vijan, we do have a 4 mm balloon in Shockwave.
Yeah, but you got 5 and 6 now.
5 and 6 one left.
I think a lot of viewers are still asking about what other steps you can say, what you can tell them about to take care of while doing a Shockwave in left main.
The duration, you got to cut down on that, because when you block the left main off, the whole of the left ventricle is at stake. So like in the RCA, you can take your time and deliver it. You might have to maybe do the currents faster, deflate, come back, deflate, come back 2-3 times before you can crack it. Yeah. So duration of inflation is going to be the key for left mains.
Okay, so it is sharp 12 o'clock now. So time to leave now. Suresh,
yeah.
And all, bye-bye and see you again.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Great. Bye-bye.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Prasad Shah, Dr. Gaurav Ganeshwala, Dr. Nitin Tiwari, Dr. Kaustav, Dr. Poddar and Dr. Khandekar. Thank you for the wonderful session, wonderfully moderated by Dr. V.K. Shah, and such wonderful comments from both Dr. Suresh Vijan and Dr. Prasad Shah. I want to thank everyone viewing for taking out time on this Sunday morning and spending with us to learn so much from such great doctors. Thank you all and have a good Sunday. We do have another session coming up on recent advances in antiplatelet therapies. Please do log in for that. Thank you.
At the heart of what we do is exploring limitless possibilities to enrich lives all over the world. Life is precious, and we are in the business of cherishing every precious heartbeat. Every day brings a new reason to better our lives. Something to learn, something to laugh and enjoy, something to dream. For as long as there's a dream, there's hope. And as long as there's hope, there's joy in living. Reasons for us to keep every heart happy and healthy. Helping us in our endeavor are the many interventional cardiovascular solutions that we create. At our state-of-the-art facilities, we make our stents and catheters, wires and needles, German excellence and Indian innovation backed by credible research. With the unmatched advantage of being the only company with clinical trials data spanning over 10 years for efficacy and safety. And a one-of-its-kind partnership with the German Heart Center, renowned for its pioneering advancements in cardiovascular technologies. It's not surprising we have over 5,000 satisfied clients and 1 million smiling patients in over 50 countries around the world. We trust good things happen when you follow your heart, because there's an ocean of opportunities to discover. And our journey has just begun. Translumina, exploring limitless possibilities of life.